The lottery ticket sat in my coat pocket, an unbelievable weight against my chest. $80 million. $80 million. I checked the numbers 3 times already, and each time, the same result, matching numbers that made my hands shake. I could hardly believe it, and the nerves were gnawing at me. I pulled up my phone to double-check the numbers once more, but I couldn't stop myself from glancing at the time. It was nearly time to pick up Lily from her playdate, and I hadn't even told her yet. My heart raced with excitement, but there was something unsettling about the moment, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something else to happen. "Daddy, when are we leaving?" Lily's voice rang out from the living room, her high-pitched words breaking through my thoughts. I hadn't noticed how long I'd been standing there, my eyes glued to the screen, checking those numbers for the 3rd time. "Just a second, sweetheart." I called back, my voice shaking slightly as I shoved the ticket deeper into my coat pocket. I didn't want to think about it anymore. It felt like a dream I was afraid would slip through my fingers if I let myself focus on it too much. I wiped my palms on my jeans, trying to steady myself before heading to the door. Lily was 6, a bubbly little girl with her mom's bright green eyes and curly brown hair. She was as energetic as a wind-up toy, always asking questions and bouncing off the walls. She had no idea how much her world was about to change. Or maybe she did, in some small way. Children have a knack for sensing when things aren't quite right, even when they don't have the words to explain it. I didn't know how to put what I was feeling into words either. Excited, overwhelmed, and strangely hollow, all at the same time. My name is Mark Hamilton, and I'm 36 years old. I'm a project manager at a tech firm here in Chicago. I've been with the company for 10 years. Steady work, decent pay, the kind of job you hold when you don't aim for the stars, but just want a comfortable life. I had a decent apartment in the suburbs, a quiet routine that I could count on, and a wife, Sarah, a corporate attorney who'd been climbing the professional ladder for as long as I could remember. We'd been married for 8 years. I thought we had a good thing. Not perfect, but good. Sarah and I were partners, each doing our part in this life we'd built together. She was the ambitious one, the driven one who set goals and tackled them head on. I admired that about her. It made her who she was, strong, independent, capable. She worked hard, sometimes too hard, but I understood that. She always said she needed someone like me to balance her out. I took care of the things at home, the mundane stuff, bills, groceries, cleaning, and of course Lily. We had our share of arguments and growing pains like any couple, but I had always thought we were solid. We were the team everyone envied. At least, that's what I thought. Then there was the lottery ticket. I didn't normally play. It seemed like a waste of money, to be honest. But that week, the prize had grown to an insane $160 million, and something about that number, maybe it was just the moment, or maybe I was craving a change, made me take a shot. I grabbed a ticket from the convenience store on my way home, joked to the cashier about how someone had to win, and promptly forgot about it. Until I saw the numbers flash across the TV screen that afternoon. My heart stopped. I checked the ticket again, and again, and again. It felt unreal, too good to be true. But now, with Lily in the back seat, humming softly as we drove to Sarah's office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The world felt like it had given me a prize. But there was something else lurking behind it, something I hadn't seen coming. I couldn't quite place it, but a sense of unease wrapped around me. Like the universe had thrown me this massive prize to distract me from something bigger. As we approached the towering glass building where Sarah worked, I told myself I would share the news with her. I wanted to surprise her, but deep down, there was a knot in my stomach, a premonition I couldn't explain. Little did I know, by the end of this day, everything I thought I knew about my life would be turned upside down. I parked the car in front of the sleek glass building where Sarah worked, my heart still racing from the whirlwind of emotions I couldn't quite make sense of. Lily was humming softly in the back seat, completely unaware of the chaos brewing in my chest. She was so innocent, so carefree. A part of me wished I could hold on to that innocence, but life had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected it. I took a deep breath before stepping out of the car, adjusting my jacket to hide the lottery ticket tucked into my coat pocket. It felt absurd to even think about the money right now. My mind kept drifting back to the uneasy feeling I had, the feeling that something wasn't right, even as my hands tingled with the excitement of what was supposed to be a life-changing moment. "Come on, sweetheart," I said, smiling at Lily as I opened the back door and helped her out. She grabbed my hand and skipped beside me, her small feet almost outpacing mine. For her, the world was still full of color and wonder. For me, it felt like everything was shifting under my feet. We entered the building, the lobby as pristine and polished as I remembered. It always made me feel a little out of place, like I didn't belong in a place like this. Sarah had worked so hard to get here, climbing the corporate ladder with determination and grace, while I was just me. The guy who showed up every day to keep things running smoothly. The guy who took care of things at home. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was comfortable, and for a long time, that was enough. But the thought of sharing this lottery win with Sarah brought a sense of unease that gnawed at me. Maybe it was because I didn't know how she'd react, or maybe it was because deep down, I knew something was off. We made our way to the elevator, and as the doors closed, I could see my reflection in the polished surface. My face was pale, my hands still trembling, though I tried to control it. I could feel the weight of the ticket in my pocket, and it seemed so insignificant now compared to what was about to happen. Sarah's office occupied the top floor, with a panoramic view of the lake. She'd always joked about how she loved the view because it made her feel in control of everything, her career, her life, her destiny. As the elevator ascended, I couldn't shake the sense that I wasn't in control of anything. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was out of my depth. The doors opened to the reception area, and Kate, the receptionist, looked up in surprise when she saw me standing there with Lily. I wasn't expected. "Mark, I didn't know you were coming by today," she said, her voice higher than usual, her eyes darting nervously between me and the hallway leading to Sarah's office. "I thought I'd surprise her," I said with a forced smile, trying to play it cool, but I knew she could see the tension in my face. "Is Sarah in?" "She's in a meeting," Kate said, glancing at her watch. "She's with a client, but you could wait, or I could have her call you." I nodded, trying to hide the growing anxiety. "It's fine. I'll just wait for her." I took a seat near the reception desk, trying to calm my nerves. Lily settled next to me, her little legs swinging as she eagerly played with her toy. My fingers drummed on my knee as I glanced around the lobby, trying to distract myself. That's when I heard it. A low laugh, followed by a man's voice, muffled but unmistakably familiar. My stomach dropped. Something about it didn't sit right. My mind raced. Why did it sound like that? Why was Sarah laughing like that with someone else? I'd never heard her laugh like that with anyone. My pulse quickened as I tried to push the unease aside. But then I heard more. A murmur of voices, then the unmistakable rustling of clothes. It wasn't just a conversation. It was something intimate. "Kate," I said, my voice low but urgent. "What's going on in there?" Kate's face flushed, and she immediately started fidgeting with some papers on her desk, her eyes avoiding mine. She seemed uncomfortable, but her silence only made my suspicion grow. "I think you should go downstairs," Kate suggested, her voice quiet, almost too quiet. "Maybe get a coffee. I can have Sarah call you." But I wasn't going anywhere. My feet felt like they were stuck to the floor as I stood up. My heart was pounding in my chest. I needed to know what was going on. I wasn't leaving until I did. I made my way toward the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. Kate jumped up, trying to stop me, but it was too late. I swung the door open. What I saw made my world crumble in an instant. There, on the leather couch in the corner of Sarah's office, was my wife, Sarah, entangled with Jason, her boss. They were half-dressed, caught in an embrace that left no room for innocent explanations. My heart stopped, and I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't my life. Not like this. Sarah's eyes widened with shock and fear as she scrambled to cover herself. Jason, looking equally guilty, was fumbling to button up his shirt. The sight of them together, the betrayal, the violation, hit me like a freight train. My mind went blank. This couldn't be real. And then I heard Sarah's voice, desperate and shaky. "Mark, this isn't what it looks like." But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. I stood frozen in the doorway. my mind trying to process what was happening, but it felt like everything around me was moving in slow motion. Sarah was pulling at her clothes, trying to regain some form of composure, but her eyes were wide with panic, and they met mine with an intensity I had never seen before. Jason, her boss, looked at me briefly, then quickly avoided my gaze, tugging his shirt down in a desperate attempt to hide the situation. But there was no hiding now, no turning back. I felt my heart hammering in my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to yell, to demand answers, but all that came out was a shaky exhale, as if my body itself couldn't process the full weight of what I was seeing. I glanced down at Lily, still standing beside me, her tiny hand holding mine, blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding around her. She was humming quietly, lost in her own world, and for a split second, I wanted to cry at how pure and innocent she was. And then the pain hit me full force again, harder this time, knowing I had to explain this to her someday. "Mark," Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts, her panic-stricken tone making my insides twist. "Please." Let me explain. This isn't what you think." I felt the anger building in me, sharp and cold, like ice flowing through my veins. I took a step into the room, closing the door softly behind me, still holding Lily's hand. I didn't want her to see this, to witness the destruction of everything I thought was stable. But she needed to see the reality of what was happening, even if she didn't fully understand it. "Isn't what?" My voice was surprisingly calm, too calm. I wasn't sure how I was even standing, let alone holding a conversation. But I was. "Because it looks like you're sleeping with your boss, Sarah? Is that not what's happening here?" Sarah's face went pale, the color draining from her cheeks. I could see the guilt written all over her, too late to hide it now. She didn't speak for a moment, as if searching for the right words, but nothing she could say would change what I had just seen. "Mark, please," she began again, but I cut her off, not wanting to hear the lies. "Don't," I said firmly, my voice thick with restraint. I could feel the anger rising in me, threatening to take over. "Don't say anything. I've already seen enough." I turned away, taking Lily's hand more firmly in mine. I could hear Sarah scrambling behind me, her voice breaking as she called out my name. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I couldn't bear to listen to any more excuses or pleas. I had to get out of there, away from the sight of her, away from the mess she'd made of everything. "Please, Mark." Sarah's voice was desperate now, shaking as she came closer. "I made a mistake. I never meant for this to happen. We were just—" I could hear her trailing off, and I knew what was coming. More apologies, more explanations. But I didn't want them. Not anymore. I wasn't going to stand there and let her justify this to me. The years of marriage, the trust, the love I thought we had, they were gone in an instant. I felt like I was drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of her betrayal. I stopped at the door, my hand on the handle. I glanced back at Sarah, who was standing there, eyes wide with shame, a mess of emotions written across her face. Jason was still sitting on the couch, trying to button his shirt with a look of quiet regret, but he didn't seem to realize that none of it mattered. His actions had already destroyed everything. "This isn't about you," I said coldly, my words bitter in my mouth. "It's about my daughter, Sarah. I'm taking Lily home. We'll talk about this later. But don't ever touch me again." I didn't wait for her to respond. I couldn't. The door opened, and I walked out, my hand still holding tightly to Lily's little one. I didn't look back. The elevator ride down felt like the longest of my life. I could hear Lily's small voice asking, "Daddy, when is Mommy coming with us?" But I couldn't answer her. I didn't have the words. I didn't know what to say. By the time we reached the parking lot, I could feel my heart slowing down, but the numbness was setting in. I needed to get away, needed to process what had just happened, but I also knew I couldn't run away from the truth. The truth was that Sarah had just shattered our family, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't pretend that everything would be okay. I got Lily settled in the car, buckling her into the back seat with a tenderness I couldn't fully understand. She smiled up at me, still oblivious to the storm that had just torn through our lives. I kissed her forehead, my hands shaking as I did so. Once I was in the driver's seat, I looked at the road ahead, but all I could think about was the weight of the lottery ticket still sitting in my coat pocket. $80 million. It should have been a dream come true. Instead, it felt like a cruel joke, a reminder that money meant nothing when trust was broken. As I started the car and drove away from the building, I couldn't help but wonder what came next. What did I do now? How did I rebuild a life after all of this? But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, I would protect my daughter. And that was all that mattered. I drove in silence, the hum of the car the only sound filling the space between me and Lily, who had fallen quiet in the back seat. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her little face full of innocence, and it felt like the universe had just slapped me across the face. She didn't know what had just happened. She didn't know that the foundation of everything I'd worked for, everything I thought I knew, had just crumbled. I glanced at the lottery ticket again, still hidden in my pocket. For the first time, it felt like nothing more than a piece of paper, a reminder of how little it mattered when the most important thing in your life was destroyed. I couldn't even process it fully yet. I wasn't sure if I was still in shock or if I was just running on autopilot. The silence felt suffocating. My thoughts were racing, each one slamming into the next, and I couldn't catch my breath. I kept seeing Sarah's face, the way her eyes went wide when she saw me. She had been caught, but she wasn't sorry, not really. She was sorry she got caught, sorry her perfect little world was crumbling, but the genuine remorse I had hoped for, it wasn't there. Not in her words, not in her eyes. I didn't know where to go. It felt like everything had changed in that one moment, and I was standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if I should jump or turn around and walk away from the ledge. But I had Lily with me, and she was the one constant in all of this chaos. I had to protect her, had to make sure she wasn't caught up in the fallout of something she couldn't even understand. I pulled into the parking lot of a nearby park, the familiar green space offering a small comfort, as if the simplicity of it could somehow ground me. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Lily was already unbuckling her seatbelt, eager to run and play, completely unaware of the storm swirling around us. I wanted to give her that, at least. I wanted to protect her from the hurt I was feeling, to give her some semblance of normalcy in the middle of the disaster Sarah had created. I got out of the car and walked around to the other side to open Lily's door. She grabbed my hand, pulling me along with her, and for the briefest moment, everything felt normal again. I let her lead me to the swings, where she jumped into one, giggling as I gave her a gentle push. "Higher, Daddy! Push me higher!" She laughed, her voice carrying through the quiet park. I pushed her higher, higher than I normally would, and for a moment I allowed myself to focus solely on her, on the happiness in her face, on her joy. It felt like the only thing worth holding on to in that moment. But the knot in my stomach wouldn't loosen. The images of Sarah and Jason, tangled together in her office, replayed in my mind like a movie I couldn't shut off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on her face, the desperation in her voice as she tried to explain. But I didn't want to hear it. It was all a lie. "How much longer are we staying, Daddy?" Lily's voice pulled me out of my thoughts, and I smiled down at her. "As long as you want, sweetie," I said, trying to sound cheerful, though it felt hollow. "We'll stay as long as you're having fun." But the truth was, I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep up this act. I wasn't sure how long I could pretend that everything was fine. I wasn't even sure I knew what fine meant anymore. I had spent so long building a life with Sarah, thinking we were solid, thinking we had a future. But now I knew better. And as much as I wanted to believe I could move past this, that I could just shrug it off, I knew that the road ahead would be a long one. After a while, I sat down on one of the benches, still watching Lily swing back and forth, her laughter a sweet sound that filled the air. My mind wandered back to the lottery ticket again. I had won, and yet it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a cruel twist of fate, a joke that the universe had played on me. I had always thought that money would solve everything, that it would give me the freedom to do what I wanted, to provide for my family in ways I never could before. But now, sitting on that bench with my daughter beside me, I realized that what mattered most was something that money could never buy. Trust, loyalty, love. And Sarah had taken all of that and thrown it away. When Lily came over to sit beside me, she nestled her head into my shoulder, her small hand resting in mine. For a moment, everything felt right. I kissed the top of her head, my heart aching with the weight of what I had to do next. "Daddy?" she said, her voice soft. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath and smiled down at her. "I'm fine, sweetie. I just need to figure some things out." She nodded, content in her simple understanding of the world. She didn't need to know the details. Not yet, but I knew that day would come. And when it did, I would be ready. For now, I just had to take it one step at a time, for her sake and mine. The rest of the day passed in a blur. After the park, I drove us back home, though I hardly remembered the journey. My thoughts were scattered, every mile feeling like a lifetime. The house felt different now, empty, even though Lily was still here with me. I could hear her humming as she played in the living room, the sound a reminder of how much I had to protect. But the weight of everything that had happened still hung over me, like a thick cloud that I couldn't shake off. I dropped my coat on the couch when I walked inside, not bothering to hang it up. The lottery ticket was still in my pocket, a cruel reminder of the things that had been torn away. $80 million. I could have been planning our future, dreaming about vacations and new opportunities, but instead, I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Sarah had tried to reach me several times. My phone buzzed in my pocket every few minutes, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What was there to say? I didn't want to hear her excuses, her apologies, or her pleading. I couldn't bear to listen to her try to justify something that was completely unjustifiable. I'd never imagined in a million years that this would happen. Sarah was the woman I'd married, the one I'd promised to build a life with. And now, I was standing at the edge of everything we'd built, unsure how to even start over. I walked into the kitchen and started making dinner for Lily. It was something to do, something to keep me moving. But the motion didn't help ease the tension in my chest. My hands shook as I chopped vegetables, and the sound of the knife against the cutting board felt louder than usual, almost deafening. I could hear Lily's laughter from the other room, and I smiled weakly, grateful for her innocence. But I couldn't ignore the gnawing ache in my stomach. This was the moment when everything had changed, and I didn't know how to move forward. When dinner was ready, I called her to the table, and we ate together in silence. Lily chattered away about her day, telling me about the new game she'd played at the park and how she'd made a new friend. I nodded along, doing my best to be present, but my mind kept drifting back to the scene in Sarah's office, to the look on her face as she tried to explain. It was a moment that would haunt me forever, no matter how hard I tried to forget it. After dinner, I tucked Lily into bed. She was already half asleep when I kissed her forehead and told her good night. As I stood in the doorway, watching her sleep, I felt an overwhelming wave of emotion. I didn't know how to explain what had happened or why it felt like my entire world was falling apart. All I could do was promise myself that I would protect her, no matter what. I wasn't going to let this break her. She deserved better than this, better than the mess that Sarah had made of everything. I closed her door softly and walked back to the living room, my mind spinning with what to do next. The phone was still buzzing, Sarah still trying to reach me. I couldn't bring myself to listen to her voicemails, each one full of panic and regret. I had no interest in hearing it. Instead, I sat down on the couch and stared at the empty space around me. It felt like a foreign place, even though I'd lived here for years. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I could barely focus on anything. The lottery ticket. I pulled it from my pocket and stared at it again. $80 million. It didn't seem real. But in that moment, it wasn't the money that mattered. It wasn't the dream of a better life or the idea of everything falling into place. What mattered was the truth. What mattered was how badly I had been hurt, how deeply Sarah had betrayed me, and how I had to start rebuilding from nothing. I wasn't sure where to begin. Divorce was inevitable, but the thought of it, of everything I had to go through to untangle our lives, felt exhausting. The money should have given me a sense of freedom, a way to escape the mess, but it just felt hollow. What was the point of it all if everything I'd worked for had just been ripped away? The only thing I could focus on now was protecting Lily, making sure she was okay, and figuring out what came next. My phone buzzed again, but this time I didn't even look at it. I knew what it was. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And for the first time, I had no idea. The days after that night passed in a haze of routine. I went to work, dealt with clients, and made small talk with colleagues, all while feeling like I was living in someone else's body. Nothing felt real anymore. The money, the life I had built with Sarah, it all seemed so distant now, like I was watching someone else's story unfold. I couldn't shake the images of her and Jason, couldn't erase the look on her face when she saw me standing there, caught in the act. I'd replayed it 1,000 times in my head, each time a different variation, a different choice I could have made, a different outcome, but nothing changed. I couldn't undo it. I had filed for divorce. It felt like the only thing left to do. The papers were in motion, and I had contacted a lawyer to start the process. I didn't need to talk to Sarah anymore. There was nothing left to say. She had betrayed me in a way I couldn't ever forgive. But what really stung was the realization that she didn't even seem to care about the consequences. She was more concerned with saving face than with the damage she had done to our family. Her phone calls were endless, her voicemails full of apologies, but none of them ever felt genuine. It was like she was trying to protect herself, not me. One night, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat down with a glass of whiskey, staring at the empty room around me. The house felt cold, silent, like the walls were closing in on me. I'd never felt so alone, and the loneliness felt suffocating. My phone buzzed on the table, and I glanced at it. Another message from Sarah. Another plea for a conversation, for an explanation, for anything to fix what she had broken. I set the phone down without reading it. There was nothing left to say. I had a meeting the next day with the lawyer. The divorce papers were moving forward, but I still had to deal with the rest of it. The custody of Lily, the assets, the house. Everything that had once felt so certain was now up in the air. Sarah hadn't fought me on the custody, at least not yet. I don't think she cared enough. But I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. I couldn't. Not after everything. That morning, I woke up early, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. The sun was just starting to rise, and I could hear Lily stirring in her room. I got up quietly and went to check on her. She was still asleep, her little face soft and peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I watched her for a moment, her chest rising and falling with each breath. It was impossible to look at her and not feel a deep sense of love and protectiveness. Everything I was doing now, every decision, was for her. I would protect her no matter what. The day dragged on, the hours passing slowly as I tried to focus on the task at hand. The lawyer was thorough, asking questions about Sarah's finances, the assets we had accumulated, and, of course, the custody arrangement. I told him what I wanted, full custody of Lily. Sarah could have visitation, but I was done letting her control the narrative. I didn't trust her anymore, and I couldn't let her influence Lily's life in any way. The lawyer nodded, making notes, and I could see the weight of the situation on his face. This wasn't just another case to him. It was personal. It was my life. When I got home that evening, I didn't tell Lily about the meeting. There was no need to burden her with adult problems. She was still so young, so innocent. Instead, I focused on making her dinner, on giving her the normalcy she deserved. As we ate, I kept the conversation light. I asked her about her day, about the new friends she was making at school. She was so eager to share every detail with me, and for a moment, I felt like I had a purpose again. This was why I had to do this. This was why I had to protect her and make sure she was okay. But as I put her to bed that night, the weight of the day hit me again. I sat on the edge of her bed, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead as she snuggled under the covers. "I love you, Daddy," she said softly, her eyes fluttering closed. "I love you too, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I kissed her forehead and stood up, my heart heavy as I watched her drift off to sleep. As I walked out of her room, I felt a deep sense of loss. Not just for Sarah, but for the life I thought we had, the life I thought I understood. Everything was different now. And even though the divorce was happening, even though I had made the decision to move on, the pain was still there. It would be there for a long time. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I was going to fight for Lily, and I was going to rebuild. Slowly. piece by piece. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. It felt like I was constantly juggling tasks, each one more draining than the last. Sarah continued to reach out, but I'd stopped answering. It wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about protecting myself, and more importantly, protecting Lily. The lawyer was pushing the divorce forward, and it seemed like every day another decision had to be made. There were assets to divide, the house to discuss, and the most important issue, custody of Lily. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became. I wanted full custody. I had to. Sarah's behavior had made it clear that she wasn't in a place to be the stable, dependable parent Lily needed. She could have visitation, but she wasn't going to be the one making the important decisions in our daughter's life. I knew what I was doing wasn't easy. I knew it would be a battle, but I also knew it was the right thing. As the days dragged on, I found myself growing more and more exhausted. Work had become a blur, and every time I came home, I was met with the silence of a house that once felt full. Sarah's absence was a heavy presence. It wasn't just that she wasn't there. It was that everything I had believed about us, about our marriage, was shattered. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize. But there was one thing that kept me going through it all. Lily. She was the reason I got up every morning, the reason I pushed forward even when I wanted to fall apart. I had to keep it together for her. I had to show her that even when things fall apart, you don't give up. One evening, after another long day, I sat down with Lily in the living room to read a book. It had become our nightly ritual, a small bit of normalcy in the middle of the chaos. She was curled up on the couch, her small feet tucked underneath her, completely engrossed in the story. I could see how much she loved the time we spent together, how safe she felt in this space we'd created. And it hit me hard. This was our life now, just the two of us. I wasn't going to let anything ruin this, not even the mess Sarah had left behind. "Daddy?" Lily asked, looking up from the pages. Her little face was full of curiosity, as always. "Yeah, sweetie," I replied, glancing down at her, trying to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to the situation with Sarah. I had to block it out for now. This moment was for Lily. "Is Mommy coming home soon?" she asked, her voice small, unsure. The question caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't know how to answer. I paused, setting the book down for a moment, and tried to gather my thoughts. I wanted to protect her from the truth, from the pain of it all, but I also knew I couldn't lie to her forever. It wasn't fair. "Sweetheart, Mommy isn't coming home right now," I said gently. "But you and I are going to be just fine, okay? We'll take care of each other." She nodded slowly, still looking at me with those wide, trusting eyes. It tore me apart to see the confusion there, but I knew I had to be strong for her. "Are we going to stay in this house?" she asked quietly, her words heavy for someone so young. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her question. I hadn't even really thought about what would happen with the house. It was just another thing I had to figure out, another decision I had to make. But in that moment, I knew the answer didn't matter so much as the promise I was about to make. "I don't know yet," I said. "But no matter where we live, it will always be our home, because we're together, and that's what matters." She smiled at that, the familiar, sweet smile that still lit up my world despite everything. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her small arms wrap around me as she snuggled against my chest. It was moments like this that made everything worth it. As I sat there holding her, I realized that my life had changed in ways I could never have imagined. It wasn't just the divorce or the betrayal. It was the realization that I was capable of more than I thought. I could get through this. I would get through this. Not for Sarah. Not for anyone else. But for Lily. The next morning, I got up early, ready to face another day of the mess Sarah had left behind. But this time, I wasn't overwhelmed. I had a new sense of purpose. I was doing this for us. No matter how hard it got, no matter how lonely I felt, I was going to make sure Lily grew up knowing she was loved, knowing she was safe. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was for sure. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let it break us. We had a life to build, and I was going to fight for that life every step of the way. The weeks following the divorce proceedings felt like an endless series of decisions and paperwork. each one leaving me feeling more drained than the last. It wasn't just the legal battle over assets or custody, though that was stressful enough. It was the emotional toll. Every time I had to face Sarah in a meeting or through the lawyer, I felt that old ache in my chest, that sharp pang of betrayal that wouldn't let go. And every time I saw Lily, I couldn't help but feel like I was failing her, that somehow I couldn't protect her from this hurt. But the truth was, I was doing everything I could. And in those moments, when Lily was with me, when she smiled up at me or asked me about something silly, I knew I had to keep going for her sake. One evening, after another long day of meetings and paperwork, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, but not really watching it. Lily had gone to bed an hour ago, and the house was quiet, almost too quiet. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel the weight of it all. The betrayal, the divorce, the uncertainty about what would come next. But in the stillness, I also felt something else, something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in weeks. Relief. Relief that it was over. Relief that I was finally free from the constant worry, the nagging doubts, the feeling that I had to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I had spent so many years trying to make things work, trying to be the perfect husband, the perfect father, the perfect everything. But what I realized now was that I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to be there for Lily. I needed to be strong for her, to give her a safe, loving home where she could grow up without the shadow of Sarah's lies hanging over her head. The thought of starting over was daunting, but it wasn't impossible. I had the money from the lottery, yes, but more than that, I had my determination. I wasn't going to let this define me or define Lily's life. We had a future to build, and though I didn't know what it looked like yet, I knew it was going to be better than the life we'd been living. I sat up and grabbed my phone from the coffee table, swiping through messages. There were a few updates from the lawyer, some details about the final settlement. But there was one message that stood out, one I had ignored for days from Sarah. I'd let her messages pile up, knowing they were just more apologies, more explanations that I didn't need to hear. But something about this one made me hesitate. "Mark, please, can we talk? I know you're angry, but I need to explain myself. For Lily's sake." I set the phone down again, the message haunting me in a way I wasn't prepared for. I'd told myself I didn't need to talk to her. I'd made my decision, and there was nothing she could say that would change my mind. But the truth was, deep down, I wasn't sure I was ready to let go of the hope that she could somehow understand the damage she'd caused. I'd spent so many years trying to make sense of things, to find closure. But no matter how much I wanted to believe it, I knew there was no easy answer, no magic words to make this right. I thought about Lily again, her face lighting up when she talked about her day or asked to play with me. She didn't need to hear any more of Sarah's excuses. She needed stability. She needed love. And as much as I wanted to believe that things could go back to normal, I knew they never would. But maybe that was okay. Maybe normal wasn't the goal anymore. Maybe the goal was to create a new life for us, one where trust and love didn't come with the baggage of the past. I thought about the future, about moving to a new place, far from the memories that haunted this house, about finding a way to rebuild, piece by piece. It wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. I had to believe that. And I had to believe that, even without Sarah, even with all the pain and the broken pieces, I was capable of being the father Lily needed. I had everything I needed to start over. I had her. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that was enough. The next morning, I woke up early, like I always did, but this time, it felt different. There was a new sense of purpose in my chest. I made coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, my mind racing with ideas about what came next. I would start by selling the house, moving us somewhere new, somewhere fresh. I would continue to fight for custody, making sure Lily had a stable, happy home. And I would keep my promise to her, to protect her, no matter what. As the sun began to rise, I looked out the window at the quiet street, feeling the weight of the future pressing down on me. It wasn't the future I had expected, but it was the one I had now. And in that moment, I finally accepted it. This was my life now, and I was ready to face it, one step at a time. For Lily, for both of us. The weeks that followed felt like an endless cascade of decisions and adjustments. I had to move quickly. The house was sold, the papers were signed, and we were out of there, away from the memories of everything that had gone wrong. It was bittersweet, of course. I had spent so many years building a life with Sarah in that house, decorating, making it a home for us and Lily. But I wasn't going to let those memories hold me back. The past had its place, but it no longer had any power over me. The future, on the other hand, that was mine to shape. We found a new apartment, a small but cozy place not far from the park. It wasn't much, but it was ours. It felt like the right move, somewhere we could start fresh, just the two of us. I made sure it was a place where Lily could feel safe and happy. I painted her room with soft colors and put up her favorite posters, even bought a new bed to replace the one she had shared with me and Sarah. I didn't want her to feel like she had to carry the weight of the past with her. The first few nights in the new apartment were quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I missed the sound of Sarah's voice, even though I knew that what we had was over. The nights felt long, and I often lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was doing the right thing. I kept asking myself if I was enough for Lily, if I could really be the father she needed. The doubt was always there, lingering like a shadow. But every time I saw her smile, every time I heard her laugh, I knew I was doing the right thing. One evening, as we were getting ready for bed, Lily crawled into my lap, her little arms wrapping around me. "Daddy, I miss Mommy," she whispered, her voice small and sad. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I had been so focused on protecting her, on building a new life for us, that I had forgotten that she was still a child, still processing everything that had happened. I knew it wasn't fair to her, but I also knew that I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't make excuses for Sarah's actions. "I know, sweetie," I said softly, my hand gently stroking her hair. "I know you miss her, and it's okay to feel that way. But you're safe now. You're here with me, and I'll always be here for you, no matter what." She nodded, her small body relaxing against mine. "I love you, Daddy," she said, closing her eyes as she settled into my arms. "I love you too, more than anything," I whispered back, my voice thick with emotion. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, my mind already racing with the things I needed to do. The legal battle with Sarah was far from over, and I knew I had to stay focused. But as I watched Lily playing with her toys, completely oblivious to the weight of the world I was carrying, I realized that no matter how hard it got, I couldn't lose sight of what mattered most. The past few months had been a blur of court dates, meetings with lawyers, and arguments with Sarah. Every time I had to face her, I felt the anger and hurt bubble to the surface. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the trust that had been broken, the way she had treated me and Lily. I wasn't going to let her take anything from us. Not our home, not our peace of mind, and definitely not Lily. But in the quiet moments with Lily, when it was just the two of us, I remembered why I was fighting. I wasn't doing this for revenge or spite. I was doing it because she deserved a stable, loving environment. I was doing it because I loved her more than anything in this world. As the weeks went on, I focused on building a routine for us. I started taking Lily to the park every weekend, just the two of us, enjoying the simple moments. Sometimes I would watch her swing high into the air, her face lit up with excitement, and I would feel a surge of pride. This was the life we were building together, and despite everything that had happened, I was proud of it. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt like I was drowning in the weight of it all. The loneliness, the anger, the fear that I wasn't doing enough. But then I would look at Lily, see the way she trusted me, and I knew I had to keep going. I was her father. I was the one she depended on, and I wouldn't let her down. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Slowly but surely, I was building a new life for us. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was ours. And in the end, that was all that mattered. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she smiled up at me. "Daddy, I'm happy here," she said, her voice soft and content. My heart swelled. "I'm happy here too, sweetie." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The future was still uncertain, but as long as we had each other, I knew we could face anything. The months that followed were a delicate balance of normalcy and adjustment. I had a routine now, a schedule that gave me a sense of control, a semblance of peace in the chaos. I woke up early every day, brewed coffee, made breakfast for Lily, and took her to school. I worked hard, though my mind often wandered to the things I had left behind, the life Sarah and I had built, the trust that had been broken, and the gaping hole in the life we once shared. But I couldn't afford to dwell on it. There was no room for it, not with Lily needing me every step of the way. As much as I tried to focus on the present, on building this new life for us, there were days when the weight of the past crept up on me. I couldn't forget what had happened. Sarah's betrayal, the affair, the coldness she showed me as she tried to salvage her own image. It would have been easier, I suppose, if I could just let go of the anger. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And maybe that was okay. One afternoon, after a particularly long day at work, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the empty counter. Lily was at a sleepover with one of her friends, and for the first time in weeks, I had the apartment to myself. It was quiet, too quiet. The silence had become a bit of a double-edged sword. Some days, it was a comfort, a break from the constant noise of my own thoughts and the daily grind of adjusting to this new life. Other days, it was suffocating, and today, it felt suffocating. I walked over to the small box that sat on the counter, Sarah's things. A few personal items she hadn't bothered to take when she moved out. A necklace, a few old photographs, a set of keys. I hadn't touched them in months. It wasn't that I was avoiding them, exactly. It was just that, for me, it wasn't about the material things. It was about what they represented. The past, the life we'd shared, the hopes I had for our family. And looking at them now, it all seemed so far removed, like a distant memory I couldn't quite reach. I sighed, sitting down at the kitchen table. I had been so focused on rebuilding everything with Lily, making sure she was okay, that I hadn't taken a real moment for myself. Not a moment to just breathe and reflect. Not a moment to grieve the life I thought I was going to have. I let my mind wander, thinking about the future. The house I wanted to buy next year. Maybe a little garden for Lily to play in. A new place where we could settle and start fresh. I had been thinking about it a lot lately. The idea of finding a home that truly felt like ours, something we could build together without the shadow of the past looming over us. As I sat there, lost in thought, I heard a faint sound coming from the hallway. My heart skipped. It was the unmistakable sound of footsteps. I stood up quickly, walking toward the sound, wondering if I was imagining things. I reached the doorway of the living room and froze. There, standing in the doorway, was Sarah. She was looking at me with that familiar, almost apologetic expression, the one I used to see when she was about to ask for something. My heart hammered in my chest, a mix of anger and confusion flooding my system. I hadn't seen her in weeks, not face to face, and the sight of her now made everything feel like it was unraveling again. "Mark," she said softly, her voice hesitant, I just wanted to talk. Please." I didn't know what to say at first. The last time I'd seen her, I'd walked away without a word, without even a second glance. And now, standing in front of me, she seemed like a stranger. I had no idea what she wanted or what she hoped to accomplish by showing up here, unannounced, after everything. I couldn't understand her need to be here, not when she had already made it clear how little our family meant to her. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, my voice flat, controlled. I wasn't sure what I was expecting from this conversation, but I knew I wasn't ready for any more apologies, any more empty words. She stepped into the room, her eyes downcast, her shoulders tense. "I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I want to see Lily. I miss her, Mark." Her words hit me like a punch. Miss her after everything? It felt like a slap in the face. I had worked so hard to protect Lily from this, to make sure she wasn't caught in the mess of what Sarah had done. I didn't want her to get hurt any more than she already had. "You want to see her?" I repeated, the words thick in my throat. "You think it's that easy? After everything that's happened?" "I'm sorry," she said quietly, almost too softly. "I know I've messed everything up. I know I've hurt you both, and I don't expect forgiveness. I just want a chance to make things right. For her." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, seeing the woman I had once loved, the woman who had betrayed me, who had hurt our daughter. But as much as I wanted to be angry, to lash out, I knew this wasn't the moment. "She's not here right now," I said, finally breaking the silence. "But if you want to talk to her, you'll have to go through the lawyer. This isn't up to me anymore." She nodded, a look of pain flashing across her face. I could see it, how badly she wanted to fix everything, but it was too late for that. She had broken something too fundamental for any apology to fix. "Okay," she whispered, "I understand." And with that, she turned and left, leaving me standing there, alone once again. The weight of it all crashed down on me, but I didn't feel the same anger. I felt nothing, just the quiet knowledge that I had moved on. That I had to, for Lily's sake, and maybe, just maybe, for mine. Life has a way of testing us, often when we least expect it. When faced with betrayal or heartbreak, it's easy to feel lost or powerless. But the key is to stay grounded in what truly matters: your values, your integrity, and your loved ones. It's not about perfection or avoiding pain, but about finding the strength to keep moving forward. Protect what's important to you, and never forget that healing takes time. Surround yourself with those who support you, and remember that even in the darkest moments, the power to rebuild and move on lies within you. Keep pushing, one step at a time.